Hey everybody, the purpose of this tutorial is to explain just a little bit more in detail about why options are priced the way that they are so that you understand how to go about looking for the best value for your money. You know, part of what we do is money management, and that means not spending too much for something when we could spend less for something else and still make just as much money. Right? So whenever you buy an option, that's an expense. The profit that you make off of it is your profit. Well, if you have less expense but can make the same amount of money, you make more profit. It's just better math. And so we're gonna explain that to you and hopefully arm you with information so you can shop for options better. And at the same time, we're gonna explain to you how you can break some of these rules and why you would break some of these rules, because it certainly is okay to break the rules. They're not etched in stone. They're, largely consisting of gray areas. But if you're going to break one of these rules, you need to have sufficient enough reason to do so. And hopefully I'm going to kind of give you some examples of maybe when you would want to do that. So there are three things that contribute to the value of a stock. That is intrinsic value, time value, and implied volatility. That's the three things that make the option worth what it's worth. Okay, so we're going to pretend for the moment that we're looking at a call option, which means we need to have a strike price of at the current price of the stock or below the current price of the stock in order for the option to be in the money for a call option. The opposite, of course, would be true for a put play. If we were looking for a put option, we need to be at the price of the stock or above it. We're looking for a call, so we need to be at the price or below it. So the first one that's in the money for us is this $80 strike price. Why? Because the current price of the stock is this $82.21. That's the current price of the stock. So the first one that's in the money is this strike price of $80. Well, when we talk about intrinsic value, basically the intrinsic value is the difference between the strike price and the actual price of the stock. If the actual price is $82.21 and the strike price is $80, that means the intrinsic value is $2.21. If I look at the strike price above it, the next strike price is $77.50. Again, the actual price is $82.21. So that would make the intrinsic value of this stock $4.71. If I skip all the way up to the very top line here, the strike price of $70, the intrinsic value on that one would be $12.21. So now you're not looking for an option with the most intrinsic value to it. No, you're looking at an option that has an intrinsic value that's roughly 50% of the bid and the ask, whatever you can buy the option for. Okay, the more distance between the strike price and the actual price, the more intrinsic value you have, and that's going to be one of the contributing factors to how much you pay for the option. Well, the next thing that contributes to the price of the option is the time value. So if you go back to the classes in the very beginning, we told you when you're looking to buy an option, the normal shelf life on an option is 6 months out. From the time it's written to the time it expires is 6 months. And so when you're shopping for an option, you want to look for something that has, 3 to 4 months left on it on the contract before it expires. Well, that's the next thing that contributes to the value of the option is time. The more time you have left on the option before it expires, the more the option's going to be worth. So as you're shopping for options, you will find that the shorter expiration dates are cheaper than the longer expiration dates. Okay? The third and final thing that contributes to the value of the option is implied volatility. And here's something that's just really kind of hard for us to calculate because we don't have access to the same information as the market maker who's actually figuring this out. But some of the things that contribute to implied volatility are is the company going to announce earnings within the life of the contract? Well, if they're going to announce earnings within the life of the contract, that could make that option and that stock shoot up in value or shoot down in value very, very quickly. That's a contributing factor to implied volatility. Another contributing factor, just how popular is the stock? Is it in the news all the time? Do everybody and their brother want to trade it? Are they just dying to look, to get into this option because it's a name brand? It's got name brand recognition, like Google, like Facebook, like Netflix, like Priceline. Those are companies that have tremendous name brand recognition. They're in the news all the time, and everybody just wants a piece of them, it seems like. So because of the interest of people, there's where some more implied volatility comes from. All of those things get baked into that implied volatility number. Now, as a general rule, we tell you that you probably want to look for an implied volatility of 25% or less. Why? Because if you're shopping for something at under 25%, you will find that the option tends to be priced cheaper at under 25% than it does for an equal stock of equal value for the stock price. In other words, I can go find another stock at about $80 and see with a lower implied volatility with the same amount of days on its expiration. And because it has a lower implied volatility, you will see that it is cheaper in value to purchase. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, okay, this stock is 80 and this stock is 80. And this one has a certain amount of intrinsic value, and this stock has the same amount of intrinsic value. But this one is going to cost me $4 to get into, and this one's going to cost me $6. Which one I'm going to buy? I'm going to buy the one that's going to cost me $4. Why? Because the delta is probably the same on it, which means I'm going to make the same amount of money for the same dollar of movement for a less option value. So as a general rule of thumb, you want to keep it under that 25% value because, look, you may be only buying one option now, but as you begin to grow your seed pile, you'll be able to buy more options, 2 options, 4 options, 10 options, 20 options whenever you turn around and buy one of these things. Well, the more options that you can buy for the same amount of money, the more money and profit that you're going to make at the end of the sell time. Okay, that just makes sense, right? So what are some examples of when you might want to consider breaking these rules? Well, for one, if you're relatively sure of the direction of the stock, okay, that may be an incentive for you to consider breaking one of those rules. In other words, we tell you whenever you're shopping around for a stock, an option, you're looking for a stock that's partnered to that option, that when you look at it on a chart, it has a predictable, dependable, repeatable pattern to it that you can see with your eyes. You can look at it and go, oh, wow, look, it goes up and down on a regular basis. I can draw trend lines pretty easily on it. I can see what the pattern is on this stock. Well, whenever you see that predictable, repeatable, dependable pattern, okay, and you can be relatively sure that, man, I'm 85, 90% sure that this stock is going to rise. Well, that may be an example of when you can go ahead and fudge those rules. Maybe I do want to consider looking at the implied volatility being over 25%. Maybe that's okay. Why? Because I'm relatively assured of the direction of the stock. Maybe that's an example of when you break that rule. Here's another one. We told you, shelf life, time value, right? How much longer is left on the contract before it expires? Well, if you know you're only going to carry the contract for 2 or 3 days, maybe I don't need one with 70 days to expiration. Maybe I can look at one with 35, 40 days till expiration. You do want to leave yourself a little bit of cushion, however, because once you get to that below 30 days to expiration time frame, the time value really begins to drop on it, and you'll see no changes on the stock maybe, but if that stock doesn't change from one day to the next, it's still going to decrease in value on the option value because you're losing time. So once you get below 30 days, you don't really want to consider that, or at least you don't want to hold on to that for very long. In fact, I would only consider getting into the option and out of the option in the same day if you have an expiration date that's below 30 days, because tomorrow it's instantly going to be devalued because you've lost time on it. So those are some examples. If you know you're only going to carry this for a couple of days and it's 45 days to expiration, well, you may want to go ahead and consider that because it's going to make the option value cheaper to purchase, and maybe you could buy 2. Maybe the one at 70 is just a little bit outside your price range, but dropping back to the one with a 45-day expiration date will allow you to buy 2 of them, and you can make twice as much money with the same amount of cash. So maybe that's an example of the rule that you want to break. If it's a really hot stock and you can see that it's just moving up and up and up and up, and there doesn't seem to be a deadline on it, well, look, that's going to have a really high implied volatility to it. But if you're reasonably sure of the direction, maybe we break that rule. So there's always an example where you could turn around and consider breaking the rules. However, the rules are there to provide you guidance. And in the very beginning phases, all right, until you kind of get your sea legs underneath you, until you've went through 10 trades on your own, I would really strongly consider sticking to those rules because they'll keep you out of trouble. They'll allow you to make good, sound decisions, and they'll allow you to keep as much money in your pocket as possible, and allow you to actually make more money because you're spending less to make it. So pay attention to those rules in the beginning, but there are always examples of when you can break those rules. And hopefully that will explain to you the 3 different things that contribute to the value of the option.